ABY Podcast is hosted by myself, Dr. Clifford Yun Physical Therapist. We'll be talking about techniques to improve your mental and physical health. The ideas and topics discussed are based upon the experiences and research of myself and my guests. They do not replace the personal consultation of a trained clinician. If you or someone you know is having a mental or physical health problem, you should consult an appropriately certified clinician. Hi, and welcome to the second episode of ABY Podcast. This week's episode is building upon our first episode that talked about our why, the why of why we do things. And I challenged you to build that kind of mental awareness of why you do the things you do throughout your day and throughout your life, and listing them so that you can better understand your goals in life to try to get things done. And this will help you improve your planning in your day-to-day. Now, what I realized after that episode was that I didn't include the physical health component. And if I'm building out a mental and physical health podcast, I should probably include that. It may not be completely in every episode, but here's where I'm going with this. If we are able to improve our physical health by harnessing our why, then we can build a better self overall. And we can improve our why by harnessing better habits. So what I realized was that I was producing Instagram and YouTube things to help improve people's health through pain management techniques, exercises to improve balance and strength and posture. But this is kind of a one particular way of learning, and it's not truly how everyone learns. And if I'm going to do a podcast, then I should respect that concept that everyone learns differently. And one of the things I like about podcasts is that we can dive a little bit deeper and have this discussion, this conversation of how to move better, how to be better at our physical health. So when we think about our physical health, we can break down our injuries, our pains, and our common injuries and pains into brackets of habits. And when we have habits, there are good positive habits and there are poor habits. And if we think about back pain or falls, these are two big areas of injury that can be linked to poor habits. Poor habits, for example, of your back pain can be linked to just posture habits, poor posture habits. Sitting down and watching and marathoning 90 Day Fiancé and slumped over on your couch is probably a bad habit. Rushing to run down the stairs to catch the bus, the train, whatever task may be, that Amazon package that you've been waiting for is a bad habit because all these things together can lead to back pain. So what do we do to change these habits? If you search online for bad habits or good habits or habit forming, you'll probably come upon several clinicians that are well noted. And what I want to highlight in particular are two people that I particularly like their concepts. Let me just make sure that I say their names correctly and I list them correctly. Let's talk about Dr. Judson Brewer, author of Unwinding Anxiety, and writer Charles Duhigg, Pulitzer Prize author of The Power of Habit and Smarter, Faster, Better. And in a nutshell, what these guys were talking about were the cycle of habit forming. And if we think about the cycle of habit forming, there's this an agreement that it starts with a general trigger, a cue that activates the response or behavior to satisfy a craving. And once this craving is satisfied, we have found our reward. And from that point, we decide if that reward is a high reward or a low reward, and we should remember that reward. And thus, we remember the cue that led to that response, that led to that high reward, and now we have a habit. We continue that habit. So for our poor posture habit, our reward was that we got to go into a zone of forgetfulness and to not think about the rest of our day. And we started streaming our Netflix for our reward when it came to rushing throughout our day, running around and just constantly rushing, running or walking fast, and not really being aware of our surroundings or slowing down to look at our surroundings. We end up falling and getting an injury. So we need to change how those habits and rewards are happening. For our instance of poor posture, we need to think about maybe not sitting on that couch for that long without getting up between maybe every episode, or maybe getting off that couch and only watching on one episode and looking outside that window, enjoying the day, thinking maybe I shouldn't be sitting there marathoning that. But you know what? It's okay. Escapism is a part of the benefit of reading and watching things that we like, or things that distract us from the reality of other things that bring us stress. But maybe we don't have to do that in the way that we've been doing that. We need to change that loop. We can start with thinking about what's the trigger, and your trigger is to, let me settle into this good book. Let me settle into this bit of distraction reality TV. But we can change our reward at the end to know that pain is the negative reward of being taken into that poor posture of that combined habit. What if we put pillows behind us? What if we bothered to stop and do some stretching, walk around a bit? It sounds a lot like things that we should do when we're working at our desk, isn't it? And these habits can build throughout our day. Maybe just you're slouching, sitting and eating. Maybe you're slouching, just standing there, waiting in line. Maybe we need to break that bad habit of posture. And in reference to rushing around, and I'm a habit of that myself as a New Yorker, and any city dweller, I think, really, is always trying to rush to the next thing. And if we bother to take our time and think about what are we really rushing for, how many tasks can you really fit in a day if you're walking about 2 steps faster? Is it really worth that benefit of meeting your face to the floor, or falling on the ground, fracturing your wrist, getting a bunch of bruises and ending up in a hospital? Did you know that a bunch of injuries for our older adults, and even us, our younger adults, but in particular our older adults, end up in the ER from fracture of the hip because of an accident from a loss of balance? And guess what? A lot of these times they're accidents. They're rushing around or not noticing something, tripping on something. And these can be changed if we bother to not rush around. Reduce the habits, reduce the things in the house that cause clutter, reduce these things that you normally that you normally take for granted around your house that should be moved because they're a tripping hazard. These are habits that we need to change in our life. So I think that that's a physical thing to change in our lives. Now, we can easily have a bunch of videos, and you can find a bunch of videos of mine on YouTube and or Instagram if you just go to my webpage at cliffpt.com/media. And that's the simple route of it, isn't it? But if you want to take that step a little bit further, you want to think about things differently. Form new habits. Think about your exercises. Think about the strength that you can gain and the movements that you learn, whether they're from me or other people on Instagram. There are plenty of colleagues of mine on Instagram now that can help you out. I'm not the only one. I'm never going to say that I'm the only one, but I'm trying to offer you guys a different way of looking at things. Habits can be very positive or very negative, and we need to learn how to change our habits for the better. Our habits form a better self. Our habits influence the people around us and perhaps make a better them. So until next time, I challenge you to change your habits. Start breaking down, stop, think about your area around you, start thinking about the things that cause you pain, and make the conscious decision to get a higher reward. And overall, I challenge you until next time to make a better version of you. Thank you. Wait, that's not it. I still have to give you something, at least a little bit something about physical exercise and ways that you can manage yourself to avoid those things of balance deficit and back pain. So let's take it a little simple step. And I can do this, you can do this exercise seated, you can do this exercise standing, but let's talk about what creates our postures. The very basic of static positioning to active movement. You can't expect to improve your balance when you're walking, standing, running, etc. if you've never had balance in a static position, meaning a position where you're not really moving. So if you have poor posture and you have no idea where good posture is, let's start with this. Good posture, good balance starts with an awareness of where our body is in space. And the beginning of that is the foundation of our feet to the ground. Your feet should be underneath your knees, flat. They shouldn't be overly extended in front of you. They shouldn't be underneath your chair. You should try to get them underneath your knees, though, and get your feet flat. And your hips should be at or a little bit higher than your knees, not necessarily that bar stool height. And you want to feel the weight of your body through those things that are in contact with the ground and the chair. That means your feet and your rear end. And those bones that sit underneath our pelvis, they're called ischiotuberaces. We call them sit bones. And you want to feel those things into the chair. Those sit bones have a certain balance to them. And we can rock those sit bones back and forward. They're like the legs of a rocking chair. And you want to find that point where you're that in-between point, where it's not too far back where you're sitting on your tailbone, and you're not too far forward where you're just leaning over your knees. Once you've found that point, we want to build up that point. We want to find that neutral point in your sit bones and then build your body up and elongate from that point so that we're getting certain landmarks on top of each other. These landmarks include your pubic bone, that's the front of your pelvis, your navel, your belly button, your sternum, that's the breastbone, and your chin. All these things stack up right on top of each other, and we lengthen the body. We grow taller. And if you can hold this position, then you're in a better seated posture. And you want to try to do this while you're still breathing. Breathing normally, just in and out. And if you've begun to get those kind of good habits for mindfulness, this is where you can start just breathing and trying to feel where you are breathing in and out. Finding your foundation, those feet, those knees. They're nice and hip width apart. Your feet are flat. Your sit bones, are you in the middle of those feet of the rocking chair of the pelvis? Are you stacking those landmarks into a nice central line? And are you breathing? Are you holding your breath? Just take your breath, nice and gradually in and out. Feel the body being on top of itself. Same can be said for standing posture. Your feet can be nice and hip width apart. Your knees don't need to be locked out. You want to soften those knees, relax those knees so that you can feel your weight in your heel, the weight in your arches, the weight in the ball of your feet. And you're going to lengthen your pelvis from that point. Again, your pelvis should be in a neutral state. You shouldn't feel like your pelvis is dipping forward, like you're about to empty out the contents of your belly button. You want to pull that up. You want to lengthen that body again and stack those landmarks. Your pubic bone, your belly button, your breastbone, sternum, and your chin right on top of each other. And roll those shoulders back, let them relax down. Again, just breathe. Finding that you're not in tension, but you're finding yourself grounded in a relaxed position with an equal, balanced base of support. If you learn how to control this area, then the potential for you to be balanced in every other form of your standing or sitting person in itself is a better version of you. Thank you for your time, and I'll catch you next time on A Better You Podcast. If you have enjoyed this episode of A Better You Podcast, please like and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. I'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas for future episodes of A Better You. For more information about myself, Dr. Clifford Yun, and my services, head to CliffPT.com.